The insult landed louder than the hum of the shopping center escalators. "People like you don't belong in here," the security guard barked, his voice slicing through the cheerful chatter of shoppers. Then, in front of a widening crowd, he jabbed a finger against the shoulder of the black woman, forcing her back a step as if she were trespassing in her own city. Whispers spread instantly. A couple near the food court paused mid-bite, staring. Children tugged at their mother's sleeves, asking what was happening. The woman's breath caught in her throat, humiliation scorching her cheeks hotter than the harsh fluorescent lights above. She clutched the small shopping bag in her hand tighter, as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Follow for what happens next. Like to support. Her name was Maya, 32, dressed simply in a cream blouse and jeans. She'd only come to buy a birthday gift for her niece, a little bracelet she'd spotted earlier in the week. But now, instead of standing at the jewelry counter, she stood frozen near the mall's center, every eye on her, as the security guard squared his chest proudly, as though he'd uncovered a criminal. "Don't make me call the police," he sneered, his lips curling, voice laced with a smug authority. His uniform looked crisp, but his words dripped with contempt. "You people always cause trouble." Maya's lips parted, but no words came. Her heart hammered so loudly she thought the crowd might hear it. She wanted to scream, to push back, but the weight of the stairs pinned her down like chains. She remembered her mother's voice in her childhood. "Stay calm. Don't give them a reason." Yet here, reason didn't matter. She had already been branded guilty in the court of whispers. A teenager pulled out a phone, its camera lens reflecting the scene back at her. Shame deepened. She turned her face slightly, not wanting her tears to be caught forever in pixels and shared across strangers' screens. The guard, emboldened, stepped closer, invading her space. "I said move along," he growled. He placed a hand against her upper arm, pushing. It wasn't violent enough to leave a mark, but it was enough to strip her of dignity in front of everyone watching. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, yet no one spoke. Silence became complicity. Maya steadied herself, refusing to stumble. Her knuckles whitened around her bag. The mall's cheerful music, a pop song playing overhead, felt like a cruel soundtrack to her public shaming. And then, through the thick ring of silence, one pair of eyes studied her with a different kind of intensity. A man leaning casually against a column near the bookstore, dressed in plain clothes, seemed to take in every detail. His posture was calm, but his jaw tightened as the scene unfolded. No one in the mall knew it yet, but he wasn't just another bystander. He was an off-duty police officer, and Maya's humiliation was about to collide with his sense of duty. The sting of the slap burned across her cheek, but the heat on her skin was nothing compared to the fire of eyes drilling into her from every direction. The mall suddenly felt cavernous, each sound amplified, the squeak of sneakers on polished tiles, the soft gasp of a child clutching their mother's hand, the faint hum of escalators overhead. But louder than all of it was the silence, an unbearable silence broken only by whispers darting like knives. She must have done something. They don't just hit for no reason. Look at her, probably stealing. The black woman, tall, graceful, dressed in a simple but neat blouse and slacks, stood frozen, her breath caught in her throat. She hadn't stolen anything. She hadn't even touched anything. She was just walking, browsing, existing. Yet here she was, in the harsh fluorescence of the shopping center, marked and mocked like a criminal. The security guard puffed his chest, a smug satisfaction in his eyes, as though the public humiliation was a performance staged for his approval. His voice carried, louder than necessary, making sure everyone within earshot knew who the villain was. "You don't belong here," he barked. "People like you think you can just walk in, take what you want, and nobody will notice." "Not on my watch." Her lips parted to speak, to defend herself, but the words refused to come. Every syllable she tried to form caught against the lump in her throat. Her hands shook at her sides, and she clasped them together, trying to anchor herself in the storm. "I didn't," she managed, her voice small, fragile. The guard cut her off with a scoff, leaning closer so the fluorescent light glared off the badge clipped to his chest. "Save it. I saw you eyeing those bags. Probably stuffed something in your purse already." "Should I call the cops now, or do you want to admit it first?" A murmur rippled through the onlookers. Phones were lifted higher, cameras catching every second, as if her pain were content to be consumed. Some smirked, others shook their heads in disgust, but no one stepped forward. She stood alone in a ring of judgment, her dignity bleeding out under the cold eyes surrounding her. Her thoughts raced wildly. Why is this happening? How do I make it stop? If I shout, they'll say I'm aggressive. If I cry, they'll say I'm weak. What can I do? The weight of history pressed down on her shoulders. The stories of others who had been targeted, silenced, erased. She could feel them in her bones, the unfairness of it all. The guard took a deliberate step back, loud enough that the squeak of his boots carried. Then he jabbed a finger at her purse. Open it, right here, right now. Let everyone see what you're hiding. The humiliation pierced deeper than the slap. Her purse lay heavy at her side, nothing but her wallet, keys, and a folded grocery list inside. She knew it, yet the demand felt like a command to strip her soul bare before strangers, to prove her innocence as though her word wasn't enough. Her jaw tightened. She wanted to say no, to shout back that she would not be treated like this. But her hands betrayed her, trembling as they inched toward the purse strap. She could feel her own betrayal, the way fear twisted her into submission, even when her heart screamed to resist. A child's voice floated from the crowd, unfiltered. "Mom, why is he being so mean to her?" The mother hushed him quickly, tugging him close, but the words lingered in the charged air like a spotlight of truth. Still, the guard ignored it. His grin widened, sensing his dominance. "That's what I thought. Go on, open it. Unless you'd rather have me call the police and let them handle it. They won't be so gentle. Gentle." The word landed like poison. The slap still stung her cheek, her dignity lay in tatters, and yet he had the audacity to call his assault gentle. Her chest rose and fell with shaky breaths. The world around her blurred, her vision tunneling until it was just his sneer and her trembling hands. The mall's fluorescent lights flickered faintly above, the kind of meaningless mechanical flicker no one notices on ordinary days. But to her, in that moment, it was as if the universe itself mocked her. Her reflection in the polished tiles below showed a woman cornered, judged, humiliated, her humanity questioned under the harsh glow of suspicion. The crowd leaned in closer, the air thick with anticipation. The guard's voice boomed again. "Open it, thief!" Her fingers brushed the zipper of her purse, hesitation hanging on every breath. Inside, she could hear her heart pounding like a drum, drowning out the noise of the mall. Shame coated her tongue, dry and bitter. She thought of her grandmother's words, whispered years ago. "They will try to strip you, child. But don't let them take your soul." And yet, here she was, seconds away from surrendering. The guard's radio crackled at his belt, the sound sharp enough to slice the tension, and the crowd shifted, waiting for what came next. The woman closed her eyes for a moment, gathering every shred of strength left inside her. She couldn't escape. She couldn't win. Not here, not now. But something was about to change. Her fingers hovered at the purse zipper, every muscle taut with humiliation. The crowd leaned in like vultures circling their prey. The guard's grin widened, victory almost in his grasp. And then, enough! The single word cracked through the tension like a whip. It wasn't shouted, but carried with a sharp authority that silenced the whispers instantly. Heads turned. The woman froze, her hand inches from surrender, her breath caught in her chest. From the edge of the crowd, a man stepped forward. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in plain jeans and a fitted jacket, his presence cut through the noise with an invisible force. His skin was the same shade as hers, his eyes steady, unwavering. He walked with the calm confidence of someone who knew the weight of truth was on his side. The guard sneered at the interruption. "Move along. This doesn't concern you." The man didn't break stride. His gaze locked on the trembling woman before shifting to the guard. "It does when I see someone being humiliated for nothing." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Phones pivoted, their lenses catching the unfolding confrontation. The guard stiffened, bristling at the defiance. "Sir, this woman is a suspected thief. Stay out of it before you find yourself in trouble too." The man stopped just a few feet away, squared his shoulders, and let his words drop like stones. "Trouble? That's my job." The guard blinked. "Excuse me?" That's my job. The guard blinked. Excuse me? Slowly, deliberately, the man reached into his jacket and withdrew a small leather wallet. With a flick of his thumb, he flipped it open to reveal a gleaming badge. The overhead lights caught it perfectly, reflecting authority undeniable. His voice carried so the entire crowd could hear. Detective Marcus Reed, City Police. And what I see here isn't law enforcement. It's harassment, gasps rippled through the onlookers. The woman's knees weakened beneath her, a rush of disbelief and relief flooding her chest. Someone in the back whispered, "He's a cop," and the tension cracked, replaced by a new kind of energy. The guard's bravado faltered, his face paling, but he quickly recovered, puffing his chest once more. Anyone can flash a badge. Doesn't change the fact that she looks suspicious. Detective Reed's eyes narrowed. He stepped closer, closing the gap, his voice firm, each word clipped with controlled fury. Suspicious? She was walking, browsing, existing. The only suspicious thing here is your obsession with her skin color. The words struck harder than a fist. The guard's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the crowd stirred, murmurs of agreement. Soft claps, a voice from the side muttering, "He's right." The woman's heart pounded, her pulse echoing in her ears. For the first time since the slap, she felt the faintest flicker of safety. Still, fear coiled in her stomach. What if the guard doubled down? What if this escalated? The guard tried to regain control, his voice louder, defensive. She refused to cooperate. Look at her. She was about to open the bag because she knows she's guilty. Detective Reed's reply was calm, but sharp as steel. No. She was about to open it because you cornered her in front of dozens of strangers, after physically assaulting her. That's not procedure. That's abuse. The word abuse cut through the mall like a thunderclap. A few people lowered their phones, shame flickering across their faces. Others recorded even closer, hungry for justice. The guard's hand twitched at his radio, but Reed's voice stopped him cold. "Touch that radio and I'll make the call myself. You'll be the one in cuffs." The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. The guard's bluster wavered, his hands twitching with the realization that the script had flipped. He was no longer the predator. The woman felt tears sting her eyes, not of shame, but of fragile hope. Someone had stepped in. Someone had seen her. The detective turned his head slightly, his tone softening as he addressed her directly for the first time. "Ma'am, you don't owe him anything. You don't have to prove your innocence to anyone here." Her throat tightened, words impossible. All she could manage was a small nod, her trembling slowing as his presence anchored her. Reed returned his glare to the guard. "Now I'm going to ask you once. Apologize to this woman. Right here, right now." The guard's face flushed crimson, his pride battling his fear. The crowd pressed closer, the atmosphere electric. Phones hovered high, every second immortalized, but the guard's lips stayed sealed, jaw locked in defiance. Detective Reed took one final step forward, his voice dropping low, dangerous but clear enough for all to hear. "If you don't, I'll make sure your supervisor, this mall, and the department know exactly how you disgrace that uniform. And trust me, you won't be wearing it tomorrow." The woman's breath caught. The entire mall seemed to pause, the air thick with suspense. Would the guard break? Would he double down? For the first time that night, the power had shifted. The silence stretched so long it became unbearable. The guard's jaw worked as if chewing stones, his pride crumbling one grain at a time under the weight of Detective Reed's stare and the unblinking eyes of the crowd. His lips trembled before finally parting. "I'm sorry." The words scraped out raw, forced and hollow, but they still rang across the atrium. A hush fell. For a moment the woman couldn't breathe. Those two words, pitiful as they were, felt like the stone that had been crushing her chest all evening had shifted slightly. Detective Reed didn't blink. "Louder. Let her hear it." The guard swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing as if the word itself was poison. "I'm sorry," he repeated, voice sharper this time, though his eyes betrayed every ounce of resentment. The woman's hands trembled at her sides. She wanted to scream that it wasn't enough, that no apology could erase the sting of the slap, the shame of strangers watching her reduced to a spectacle. But her voice failed her. Instead, she stood taller, spine stiffening, forcing herself to meet the guard's eyes. Her silence said what her lips could not. You don't own me. You never did. Reed stepped closer, his voice calm but unyielding. Now step back, and don't touch her again. The guard retreated a step, shoulders hunched, face dark with humiliation. The crowd began to murmur, the shift palpable. Some whispered their discomfort, ashamed of their earlier silence. Others clapped softly, timid but real. The glow of phone cameras recorded every second, ensuring the truth would outlive this night. Reed turned toward the woman. For the first time since he'd arrived, his expression softened, the steel in his eyes giving way to warmth. Are you all right? Her throat tightened. She nodded once barely. I think so. Don't think, Reed said gently. No, you did nothing wrong. Not one thing. Don't ever carry his shame as your own. His words sank deep, unraveling the knot of humiliation tangled in her chest. Tears slipped free, hot trails down her cheeks, but they weren't the same tears from earlier. These were different. These were release. Reed extended a steadying hand. She hesitated for a moment, then accepted it, his palm firm and grounding. He guided her through the parting crowd. Some lowered their eyes as she passed, unwilling to meet her gaze. Others offered small nods, apologies unspoken. For once she didn't shrink from their stares. She held her head high, even as her knees threatened to buckle beneath her. Outside the store, the mall air felt lighter, freer, though the echoes of sirens and chatter still lingered in her ears. Reed stopped, releasing her hand but staying close. You should file a report, he said, tone businesslike, but still layered with concern. This shouldn't be swept under the rug. She looked at him, voice finally steady. Will it matter? He met her gaze firmly. It always matters. Even if nothing changes today, your voice adds weight for tomorrow. And tonight, everyone here saw the truth. They'll carry it too. Her chest swelled with something she hadn't felt since the slap. Pride. Fragile, but growing, she whispered, Thank you. Reed shook his head. Don't thank me. I only did what was right. The strength you showed, that was all you. The words struck deeper than the slap ever could, reshaping the jagged edges of the evening into something survivable. She realized then that dignity wasn't something anyone could strip from her. It was something she chose to stand in, even when the world tried to drag her low. As Reed turned to leave, he paused, his voice carrying one final truth. Remember, ma'am, hate only wins if we let it. Tonight, you didn't let it. She stood rooted to the spot as his footsteps faded, the sting on her cheek still raw, but no longer defining her. What lingered instead was his voice, his presence, and the knowledge that even in her darkest humiliation, she had been seen, defended, and reminded of her worth. And for the first time that night, she allowed herself a small, trembling smile. Dignity, equality, and courage rise above hate. When one voice speaks out, silence shatters. Follow for more powerful stories and like to support voices that matter.